It started on a night when the rain came down so hard it looked like the sky was trying to erase the earth. The kind of rain that drowns sound, that makes the world blur into streaks of gray and water. The campus of Ridgewood Military Academy sat on the hill like a silent ship in the storm, its windows glowing faintly, the flag whipping wild above the courtyard. Inside the barracks, a group of cadets laughed around a flickering heater, their uniforms damp, their spirits high from the mischief they had just pulled. Outside, drenched to the bone, stood Emily Carter, the only female cadet in Alpha Platoon. Her short brown hair was plastered to her forehead, her fists clenched, her teeth gritted against the cold. They had locked her out, on purpose. It wasn't just a prank. Not really. It was a test. At least that's what they'd tell themselves later. They wanted to see if she'd break, if she'd cry, if she'd run to the commanding officer. But Emily didn't cry. She stared at the bolted steel door, rain streaming down her face like tears she refused to shed. The laughter from inside echoed through the walls, muffled and cruel. She knocked once, hard. The sound was swallowed by thunder. No one answered. For a moment, she thought of pounding the door again, of yelling, of demanding they open up. But something inside her, something fierce and deep, told her not to. Not this time. She turned, her boots sloshing through puddles, and walked into the storm. Hours later, when the rain had stopped and dawn began to gray the sky, the cadets found her bunk empty. Her uniform was gone, her duffel bag too. They laughed at first. Maybe she'd gone to report them, or to sleep in the infirmary. But by evening, when word spread that Emily hadn't shown up for roll call, the laughter died. No one saw her for weeks. The academy went back to its routines. Marches, drills, inspections. But there was an unease, a whisper that traveled through the halls, Carter's coming back. They didn't know where she went, and most of them didn't care to find out, until one night, 3 months later, the sound of helicopters filled the sky. It started as a low hum, then grew into a roar that rattled the barracks window. Cadets ran to the windows, squinting into the night. Black shapes cut across the moonlit sky, fast, precise, terrifying. Then came the floodlights, sweeping over the courtyard. Someone shouted, "What the hell is that?" Moments later, the front gates opened with military precision, and through them marched a dozen figures, armored, armed, and unmistakably Navy SEALs. At their front walked Emily Carter. Gone was the timid girl they had mocked. She wore a black tactical uniform, wet from sea spray, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. The SEALs followed her like shadows. The commander of the academy, Colonel Hensley, stormed out in his robe, half asleep and furious, but one look at the insignia on the SEAL's shoulders made him stop dead. "What is the meaning of this?" he barked. Emily saluted sharply. "Permission to conduct a demonstration exercise, sir," she said, her voice steady as stone. Hensley blinked. "At 2 in the morning?" "Yes, sir," she said, without flinching. Authorization was cleared by Naval Command. They should have faxed it an hour ago. Sure enough, his aide ran up seconds later with trembling hands holding a letter with the Navy's seal. The colonel read it, and his expression twisted between confusion and disbelief. "Proceed," he muttered finally. Emily turned to the courtyard where her old platoon stood frozen. "Alpha Platoon," she called. "Outside. Now." They obeyed, not because they wanted to, but because something about her tone cut through them like a blade. The rain started again, soft, but steady. The SEALs stood behind her, silent and watchful, as if waiting for a signal. "You remember me?" she said when they lined up. "I'm the cadet you left in the rain." A few looked down. Others shuffled uncomfortably. "I told myself I'd come back when I could stand beside the best," she continued. "Turns out I didn't have to wait long. The SEAL standing nearest to her, a man built like a wall with a calm, deadly aura, spoke for the first time. Lieutenant Carter earned her provisional training clearance at Coronado, he said. She completed Hell Week without a single dropout. The cadets stared, disbelief flickering across their faces. Coronado, the SEAL training base, was legendary. Brutal, almost impossible. Emily looked each of them in the eye. You wanted to test me, she said quietly. Now I'm testing you. The next hour was chaos. The SEALs ran drills that made the cadets crumble. Mud crawls, cold exposure, weighted sprints. Emily moved among them, shouting commands, pushing them to keep up, matching every motion with effortless precision. Keep your head down, Jones. Move, Daniels. You think rain hurts? You have no idea what pain feels like yet? Thunder cracked overhead, rain pounding harder, and under the blinding floodlights, the cadets began to understand what she had endured. Every step, every breath, every freezing drop, she had turned it into fuel. By the time the drills ended, half of them were shaking from exhaustion. Emily stood before them, rain dripping from her uniform, chest rising and falling in quiet rhythm. This, she said softly, is what respect feels like. You don't get it by bullying someone weaker. You earn it by standing through the storm. Silence. Only the rain answered. Then, from the back of the line, one cadet, the one who'd locked the door that night, stepped forward. We didn't mean to, he began, but she cut him off. You did, she said, and I thank you for it. He blinked, confused. You made me strong enough to walk through the storm. You made me angry enough to become better than every single one of you. So I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to show you what happens when you underestimate someone who refuses to quit. The colonel watched from the steps, arms crossed, expression unreadable. For the first time, he seemed proud. The SEAL commander gave her a small nod, then turned to his team. Mission complete, he said simply. But Emily didn't move. She looked at her old bunkhouse, at the light glowing faintly through the rain. Not yet, she whispered, because she knew the night wasn't over. Something was coming, something she hadn't planned for. Just as she turned to leave, the power cut out. The entire campus went black. A hum filled the air again, but this time it wasn't helicopters. It was something else. And that's where the first part ends, the rain falling harder, flashlights flickering on, and Emily Carter realizing that whatever storm she had faced before, this new one was just beginning. The courtyard plunged into darkness so complete that for a second, no one breathed. The rain fell heavier now, drumming on helmets and puddles, 1,000 tiny fists pounding the earth. Flashlights snapped on, their beams slicing through the storm, catching only glimpses, wet faces, gleaming rifles, wide eyes. Emily's hand instinctively went to the radio on her vest. Echo team, report, she called, her voice low but steady. Power grid failure. One SEAL answered through static. Not on our end. Looks like a full blackout. Possible interference. The colonel's voice rang out, sharp and irritated. This better not be part of your little exercise, Lieutenant. Emily didn't answer immediately. She could feel it, the unease crawling up her spine. No, sir, she said finally. This isn't us. Then came the sound, faint at first, like a footstep. Then another, metal clanking, echoing from the far side of the courtyard, near the motor pool. Hold positions, the SEAL commander ordered, raising a hand. His team moved silently, fanning out like shadows. The cadets, still trembling from the earlier drills, huddled together, unsure whether to move or stay still. Through the rain, a dark figure appeared. Then another, and another. Emily squinted into the darkness. The shapes were human. At least, they looked it, but wrong somehow. Too smooth, too deliberate. Then lightning flashed. and for a split second she saw them clearly. Men in black tactical suits with no insignia, faces covered, weapons drawn. "Contact!" shouted a SEAL. Gunfire cracked the night, sharp and deafening. Bullets tore through puddles, sparks flying off the wet concrete. Cadets dove for cover, shouting panicked. The SEALs moved with machine precision, covering returning fire, advancing through the storm. Emily crouched behind a sandbag barrier, radio crackling in her ear. "Who are they?" she yelled. "Unknown," came the reply. "They're not Navy, not Army either. No heat signatures on satellite, they just appeared." She peeked over the barrier and spotted one of the intruders planting something near the generator shed, a small blinking device. A bomb. Without thinking, she bolted. "Carter!" the SEAL commander shouted after her. But she was already sprinting across the slick ground, boots sliding, heart pounding. Gunfire whizzed past her as she dove into the mud behind the shed. The rain blurred everything, but she could make out the timer on the device, 45 seconds and counting. Her hands shook, but training kicked in. She yanked the panel open, wires hissing with static. Red, blue, green, standard setup, except the colors were reversed. A decoy wiring system. She cursed under her breath, trying to trace the line. 30 seconds. "Talk to me, Carter," the SEAL in her ear said. "I've got a charge near the generator, timer's under 30. Can you disarm?" "Maybe." Lightning flashed again. The rain made her fingers numb. 20 seconds. She closed her eyes for one split second and pictured her SEAL instructor's voice in her head. "When everything goes wrong, trust your instincts." She cut the middle wire. Silence. The blinking stopped. She exhaled, shaking with adrenaline. "Device neutralized," she said into the radio, but the relief was short-lived. From the main gate came a deep metallic groan, the sound of the steel barrier being forced open. The intruders were inside the compound now. Emily grabbed her sidearm and ran back toward the courtyard. Smoke from flashbangs mixed with the rain, turning the air into a choking fog. Shadows moved in every direction, SEALs fighting hand to hand, cadets scrambling for safety. She spotted one of her old platoon members, Jones, pinned against a wall by one of the black-suited men. Without hesitation, she lunged, tackling the attacker with all her weight. They rolled through the mud, fists flying, until she managed to grab the man's mask and rip it off. What she saw made her freeze. It wasn't a man at all. The face beneath was cold, metallic, part machine, part human, with glowing eyes and synthetic veins pulsing like blue fire. A cyborg. Jones shouted, "What the hell is that?" Before she could answer, the thing slammed its arm into her chest, sending her flying back into the mud. She gasped, wind knocked out of her. The cyborg rose, its expressionless face turning toward her. Then a gunshot split the air. The creature's head snapped back. A perfect shot. The SEAL commander lowered his rifle, rain streaming down his helmet. "Move, Lieutenant." They regrouped near the flagpole as the battle raged on. The colonel stumbled out of the main hall, shouting orders no one could hear. Emily glanced at the fallen cyborg, wires exposed, sparks spitting. "Why would anyone attack a military academy?" she muttered. The commander gave her a look that told her everything she needed to know. "Not an attack," he said. "A test." Her stomach dropped. She thought of the authorization letter, the timing, the blackout. Someone wanted this to happen, someone high enough to arrange it. And then, through the fog, she saw him. A man in a raincoat standing near the gate, watching everything. His face hidden beneath a cap, his stance too calm for chaos. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second before he turned and disappeared into the storm. "Commander," she said, pointing. "There." But he was gone. The SEALs secured the perimeter while engineers brought the backup generators online. The courtyard lights flickered weakly back to life, illuminating the aftermath. Destroyed equipment, injured cadets, mud and blood mixed in puddles. The colonel's voice shook as he approached. "What the hell just happened here, Carter?" "I don't know," she said truthfully. But whoever they were, they knew exactly what they were doing. A medic came to bandage a cut on her arm, but she waved him off. Her mind was spinning. The SEAL commander walked up beside her. "That man you saw," he said quietly. "Tall, gray coat." She nodded. He exhaled slowly. "That wasn't just anyone. That was Commander Rayner. Black Ops Division." "Thought he was retired." Emily frowned. Why would a retired Black Ops officer send machine soldiers after a training academy? The commander looked grim. "Because someone wanted to see you in action." Her heart stuttered. "Me?" He nodded. "You're not supposed to know this yet, Carter, but your training at Coronado wasn't standard. You were in the SEAL development program for autonomous unit leadership, the one they said got shut down last year. Rayner ran it." Emily's mind reeled. "You're saying this was all staged? Even the attack?" "Not all of it," he said. "Someone took it too far. The cyborgs weren't supposed to be armed. They weren't supposed to." He stopped when he saw the bodies being carried out. "Someone wanted to see what you'd do when pushed past the limit." She felt sick. The rain suddenly felt colder, heavier. "So this was never about proving myself to them," she whispered, looking at the cadets she once called her team. "It was about proving myself to him." The commander's radio buzzed. "Sir, we've got something you'll want to see." They followed the voice to the far end of the compound, where a small metal box lay half buried in mud. Inside was a flash drive, military issue, stamped with one word, Project Resurgence. Emily stared at it, the letters burning into her mind. "Looks like your story's not over, Lieutenant," the commander said. "It's just beginning." And as lightning tore across the sky again, Emily Carter knew she was no longer just the cadet left out in the rain. She was the key to something much bigger and far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. That night changed everything. The academy was shut down for investigation, the SEALs recalled, and Emily was transferred to an undisclosed facility. But the whispers continued, about cyborg soldiers, secret programs, and a young woman who once stood alone in a storm and came back leading the Navy's deadliest team. Sometimes, when she walked the empty training grounds of her new base, she could still feel the rain on her face, hear the laughter of the cadets who once locked her out. Only now she didn't feel anger. She felt purpose. Because she understood now. Storms don't break you. They reveal who you are when everything else is stripped away. And Emily Carter had become the storm itself.